This podcast is sponsored by CSMI, the maker of the HUMAC Norm isokinetic system. Purchase a new or refurbished machine, or you can even upgrade an existing system to bring it up to date with all the latest testing and training applications. Please visit csmisolutions.com to view all of their available products, including the HUMAC Norm isokinetic system, the HUMAC Balance portable computerized balance system, and Sportswear Online. CSMI. Better data leads to better results.
The Everything PT podcast is sponsored by Vald Performance. Vald is the creator of the airbands for blood flow restriction therapy. If you are looking to stay up to date with today's post-surgical modalities and adding BFR to your clinic, please visit valdperformance.com. Hello, and welcome to the Everything PT podcast with Matt Taylor and Daniel Bodkin. Please do not consider anything you hear to be medical advice. Just a couple of guys ranting about everything PT. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Everything PT podcast. I'm Daniel Bodkin. I'm joined by my co-host, Matthew Taylor. Matt, what's going on?
Not much, Dan. Fighting a little bit of the sickness over here, but powering through, my friend.
I can't believe you've been sick for a whole week.
I know. I love to hunt. It's hunting season here. So I think it's a combination of traveling, very bad food, irregular sleep, and just kind of caught up with me here.
So Matt, we have kind of gotten a little bit of an international following, funnily enough.
Yeah. We have people in several different countries. I'm blown away by this. And I know we have people in Australia. We have people in where else? Sweden and different places. So I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah. So, in light of that, we actually have our first international physio guest on today. So let's go ahead and introduce. We have Heiko Martin. Heiko, how's it going?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, but I'm healthy, unlike Matt.
Yeah, me too.
So Heiko, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So as you already said, my name is Heiko Martin. I'm from Switzerland. Originally, I'm a German, but I'm living in Switzerland since more than 30 years and working in Switzerland as a physiotherapist. So that's my first job. And second, I'm working as a product specialist for companies who's selling equipment for hospitals, for physiotherapists, for rehab centers, for scientists in all that locations. I'm not a sailor. I'm the product specialist. So I have the honor and the fun to present these products to my colleagues, to explain the products, to get them behind the biomechanics, to teach them how to play with this tool so that I don't have the pressure to sell it. So I'm the good guy. So I'm coming before and after the sales. I'm supporting my clients, and lots of them are my friends since 25 years. So I love it. I love the products, and I love to use the products in our institute for sure. The same. So.
Yeah, and that's actually how we connected. It was through Rob Potash of CSMI. Yeah. When he was out visiting you, he said, you got to get Heiko and also Francesca. And Francesca, we're going to have her on an upcoming episode as well. He's like, you got to interview them for the show. So that's where we are today. So Heiko, in the US, if we're talking like an outpatient PT setting, we typically will see between 1 or 3 patients at a time. And over the course of a day, we'll see about 15 patients. And most of the time they're there for about 45 to 60 minutes. Sometimes you get one-on-one, sometimes it's not. What is it typically like where you're practicing?
So in Europe, in the most countries in Europe, especially in Switzerland, it's different. So we have a schedule of half an hour treatment, which is paid by the insurances. So the patients show up with the recipes and they say, this is the diagnosis. And then they have, most of the time, they have 9 times physiotherapy, which contains out of 9 times 30 minutes. Some institutes do 25, some do just 20, but normally is 30 minutes, but these contains one-to-one physiotherapy. So what you do in that in that time. If you do dry needling, PNF, trigger point, massage, ultrasound, shockwave, isokinetics, or just exercises on a training platform, doesn't matter. So in Switzerland, you didn't get extra money for any treatment. So it's up to you what you do. So in these 9 times. So if you look around about a physio day starting at 8 p.m. and going to 5 p.m., you could have 16, sometimes even more 18s. So in my hard days, I did 18 patients a day, but this is too much. So because it's like duck. Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, if you think about it, if I have 60 minutes with 2 patients, even though technically that would be 30 minutes each, you're not really getting 30 minutes of one-on-one care with anyone, because while I'm working with you, I might be mobilizing your shoulder while I have my other patient over there. So it's really hard to split that attention. So I really like that one-on-one model.
It's a super cool model, but it's very challenging because the time is really hard scheduled. So when your patient is leaving at, let's say, at 9:28 or 9:29, the next one is already waiting. So you have almost no space left and no time left to think about, hey, what I'm going to do with my next patient? What did I do with him the last time? So this is a topic I always discuss when we had exercises and additional trainings, and the presenters say, and then you can do a macro training plan, a micro training plan, and something like this. And I say, hey, come on, when shall I do this?
Oh yeah.
We physios and you too. I mean, we are like managers who goes every second hour in a next meeting, and we have no time to prepare for us. And there's no manager would do this. And this is the hard thing on the job. I love my job, but it's like bam, 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 bam.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, you have to produce the whole day.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know I'd always try to get at least 15 minutes in the morning and then 15 minutes during my lunch to plan, to look ahead and see who I have and what they've done. The other thing too, we have so much documenting in the US. What's documentation like for you in Europe?
It's the same. We have a duty of documentation. So you have to, so your documentary contains out of every treatment, you have to document what's in there. You should write a report after these 9 times recipe, but you didn't get any money for this. So if you're working in a hospital where you get that time by the organization, I mean, it's nice to have 1 day of report time, one hour of report time, or even more each day. If you're working in a private institute, you can't afford this. So you try to reduce these documentary to the absolute minimum so that it's understandable, at least for you.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, at the end, nobody reads it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but
true.
If we go back and we talk to,
and
if we talk to like my mentor, John, he'd say initially you would do one note a week. Then that turned into doing 1 note a day, but you would just write down the exercises you did. And now they want you to not just say that you did body weight squats, but I'm doing body weight squats for functional progression and neuromuscular education to build towards the function of sit to stand. And just so it's like it's almost like the more technology we get to help out, the more we're actually taking time to have to do it.
Yeah. When I'm thinking about what I let's say a normal treatment, a patient shows up, I say hello, I ask him how is it going. I'm looking in my chart very shortly. Then perhaps I'm doing 1 or 2 manual therapies. Let's see, I'm doing a manipulation, I do a dry needling, I do a myofascial technique, then I'm doing an activation, then we go to the isokinetic system for about 10-15 minutes, activating something, looking the response of my techniques. And after this, I'm telling him some exercises, which I introduce him the last 6-10 minutes to make sure he's able to do it. And then he's doing it alone. Hello, just to document this, what I did. I mean, cracking T5, T6, Yes, I had a response. Do a dry needling and trapezius ascendens right side. Doing this exercise. Went on the isokinetic system doing 60 degrees per second flexion extension for the left knee, and with these and these results. And it took me 10 minutes. That's ridiculous.
You know what I love though is even though we're separated by a large body of water, you're saying a lot of the same things that a lot of the same issues you're saying. It's the same issues we're having in the US.
Yeah.
So
but
very
and what I realized is that all people talking about documentary, but at the end, if you look at it, really nobody reads it. The insurance doesn't read it. If they have question, what did they do? The key manager, they don't read the reports. What did they do? They call me. And what we realized in Switzerland, I mean, you shouldn't talk about it loudly, but we have some doctors, they ask us to write a report after the physiotherapy session of this block of 9 times. And you know what we realized what they do? They put our report, set their address on top and send it to the insurances, and they get money for reports. We don't. And since we realized this, we stopped any reporting. And if someone wants to, we just charge them. If a patient says, yeah, I need a report, okay, that costs you one of your half-hour treatments, or you charge it.
So you mentioned 9 visits. Is that universal? Or let's say if somebody has a rotator cuff repair or an ACL, are they going to get more visits based on,
Yeah, a second time. So one recipe is always 9 sessions. So, but if the problem is still there after these 9 times, normally it's not a problem to get 3 or 2 of these physios blocks. If you want to have more, the insurance asks. But then the insurance asks you as a physio, hey, what is the expectation of the patients? Can you give us a short summary? And then if the insurance asks you for a summary, they pay you. Okay.
Yeah, so it's very similar.
And that's cool. That's cool. So, and we always ask our patients, hey, if you want to have a report, ask your injury to send us a request, and then we are paid. And for sure, for a rotator cuff or an ACL, what we have at the moment, we have quite nice endoprosthetics, knee endoprosthetics, which I love. For sure, 9 times is not enough, especially when you treat. How often do you treat in a week, in average? 1, 2, 3 times daily?
So I'll let Matt speak to that.
Yeah, so Heiko, I have a small private practice in Charleston, West Virginia. And I would say that depends greatly. I've seen some people, and I recommend that they try X, Y, and Z education. They really don't return. They call with any questions. And we see fresh ACLs for 3 times a week, rotator cuffs for 3 times a week. And then we naturally decrease them to twice a week and then once a week over the span of however many months. So we see them a good bit in the beginning. It's traditional insurance-based model. Is there any cash-based physiotherapy going on over there in Sweden?
Switzerland.
I'm sorry. Gosh, sorry.
No, not really.
No, that's a new trend that we're seeing in the US. Insurance is such a hard and difficult, challenging thing that PT clinics are saying, screw this. We're going to just have you pay cash. You go figure it out. Put that burden on the patient. And that's what's happening in the US.
We are not allowed to do this. We would like to do this, but we're not allowed to do this. So if you want to have a physio session private with me, you have to pay for it. But we are not allowed to ask someone that it's a must for him to pay first.
Interesting.
So if he has a recipe, we have to accept this recipe. That's a pity.
Yeah.
Well, Heiko, I looked through your bio online. Have you worked with some really cool groups? So the first one I noticed was you worked with the Porsche racing team.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I mean, that was quite funny. I knew I was a member of the European Isokinetic Society in the 2000. think it was from 2001 till 2012 or something like this, where this society existed. And one of the members was the medical team doctor. Yeah, and if you work together a few years, once we had a dinner and he said, hey, my physio's gone. And I said, yeah, so if you need a physio a few times a year, so I can do it. And yeah, so okay. And it was so easy to get in there. And for me, it was funny because normally, as you can imagine, as a climber, mountain biker, and mountaineer, I'm not really interested in race driving. So that's yeah, really. I mean, that's an area I have also no idea of, really, not at all. So, and I was thrown in that field of sport. That was cool. It was quite cool because I was. I was responsible for the drivers and the team. So the mechanics also, when they had problems, mostly during the 24-hour races in Atlanta, in Spa, in Nürburgring, in Le Mans. So, and my job as a physio was to make sure that the drivers survived the 24 hours. So
that's insane.
So, and in the training camps, once a year, we had a training camp of 4 days where they were not sitting in a car at all. And in this training camp, they were they had really hard training days just to get their physical shape as high as you can in that short period and then stretch it over the years because their schedule is full of race driving and traveling. And that was the idea of them. And that was the second part. So support them during the training camps. But the most time was the races. Wow. So that was cool. That was really interesting. And the most interesting thing for me was in the beginning when I started it, everybody, especially as a physio, think about, problem of race drivers are the neck. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everybody thinks about the neck.
I would assume.
It's not at all the neck. So no, not one race driver says I have a stiff neck or I have a hard, because they're used to it. They're used to it since they're 5 years old, since they're sitting in the go-karts. So they had problems. I had a lot of racing drivers. They have problems in the back because the carts are so hard, and they're again, I had no idea about that, but the mechanics and the drivers, they told me about the problem. So they don't steer a car like this, they do it like, it's always, if they do a curve, it's not like we do, so they do it like, and back. And it's every movement is very short, it's very hard, it's very aggressive. And that ends up in wrist pain, especially on courses like Spa in Belgium, where they have to do a lot of steering movements. After 12 hours, they came in when they changed the drivers, and I had to figure something out to treat their wrists. And we were getting ice water, and we were doing some cream. Brace, something like just do something, ultrasound, just to reduce the pain of the wrist, of the elbows, of the back, and the feet.
I can imagine just the clutch, having to work a clutch that long. And it's not like a clutch that's in, my old Ford Probe that I used to have.
Yeah.
That's a very high powered clutch.
It's unbelievable. So I had drivers in Le Mans, they came out of the car after. So one stint is one session until they have to change the wheels. That's called a stint. And then they also change the driver. And I had drivers showing up after 2 or 3 stints, and they had so much pain on the feet that they told me, hey, I can't push the brake hard enough anymore. It hurts. So do something. And then you have more or less an hour, and then they have to go back in the car. So what do? So you have to figure something out with your fantasy and your physiotherapy ideas. And this is the exciting part. It's not.
Heiko, have you seen that movie Ford versus Ferrari at all? Ford versus Ferrari. It's about that race, about the Le Mans race, where Ford builds the GTO race car, and it shows them changing out the entire. It's pretty cool. I think you would like it since you were actually
I have
there.
To Google that. No, I didn't.
I think you would enjoy it, but yeah, you would like it. But now just to shift gears a little bit, you were part of some Paralympic sports and activities. How did you get started with those by chance?
It's always the same, Matt. Vitamin B. So Francesca, my girlfriend, she was the physiotherapist of the Paralympic ski team in Switzerland. And so the whole Paralympic connection is linked together. So, and then once the badminton players were looking for a physio, and then I did 1 season with them. And then I met on a meeting, I met the trainer of the Paralympic cyclists. And then he asked me, and then I shifted from the badminton players to cyclists. And this was the way it was starting. So it's a little bit the same like with the Porsche. So someone put me and throw me in that field, and then you have to perform in some way, not the way you learn in school, but just I mean, if you ever did something like this, Matt, a sport physio on the track, in the championship, on the competition, it's not only doing physio. So you have to, depends on the sports. I mean, Francesca, she was standing for hours in the snow, in the cold, and talking about the two-way radio, the times to the trainer. And in the evening, she was then treating. I was on the track and getting the athletes in the wheelchairs, out the wheelchairs, stuff like this. So you're
very cool. So just taking advantage of your opportunities, pretty much.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a good thing beneath the normal job, where every half an hour a new patient comes in, and you have your schedule and you have your daily life of treatments. So if you're 2 weeks out with the Porsche team, or like this year, if you're 2 weeks in Canada with the cyclist, you never know what happens the next day. So even the weather, I mean, for the cyclists, if they see in the morning or in the evening, they see, oh, there's a thunderstorm next morning. At what time? 9 o'clock. Oh my God, 9:02. It's exactly the starting time for my trial. Oh my God, they got nervous. And then you're in the function of a psychologist. And then you have to think about talking with the mechanics. Hey, when do you change the wheels? Or do they have in a hard rain? Can we do something to have a better grip on the how do you call this?
The wheel. Oh, the skis, the poles, or the poles.
Yeah. So on a Paralympic cycle, this one.
Oh yes, a handle. Oh yes.
So how they have a better grip, or what can you do with the goggles? They need special goggles because they're so flat. So when it rains, all the water from the front wheel is going from the front wheel because they're laying on the street, more or less.
Wow.
And all the water from the front wheel is going directly in the face. So it could be like in a Formula One race, if they're very close together, and I mean really close, they can't see anything. So, and then at first you need a lot of courage, and second, you need someone who tells them 20 seconds before the start, hey, come on, everything is okay, you're fit and whatever. You know, that's the job.
Yeah. So can you tell me, working with these different groups, what are some of the lessons that you've learned working with them that you have applied to just, the regular person or the regular patient in front of you?
I mean, for me, it's very simple, because I had especially with the Paralympic badminton players and the Paralympic cyclers, with the sitting cyclists, because there are two classifications, the standings and the sittings. And I have 90% sittings. So my problem in physiotherapy with them was shoulder.
Sure.
So that means for me, if I went for 2 weeks to Canada, I was treating 2 weeks just shoulders. And then you learn the feeling of a really tight teres minor, or you feel, for me, what I learned is, don't forget, now we are talking about muscles, don't forget subscapularis. So that's, for me, it's an absolute, meanwhile, it's an absolutely key muscle, because sometimes we had athletes, they had an overuse syndrome. They were so tight because in 2 weeks, you have to imagine, in 2 weeks, that means 2 races, right? So the first week, a race in one location with the whole procedure, and then you travel for 1 day, and then you have another World Cup race. So, and this is then in the second week, there appears signs of overuse. And what I learned is, before I do anything on the rotator cuff, before I do anything on the biceps tendon, before I do anything on the supraspinatus, just treat the subscapularis, just make this one working. And then, this is my personal experience, it's not scientific based, but my personal experience is, treat the subscapularis, and the shoulder is in 20 minutes, 60% better.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it hurts because you have to go under the scapula. But if you do this, the athletes say immediately, wow, I can't believe it. What did you do? Because my pain was there. I say, yeah, it's just because of so happy scapula, happy shoulder. If once a teacher told us, and it's true. It's true.
I like that. Hey, just another follow-up question. Where does isokinetics fit in your treating of, the Paralympic athletes? I know that you off air, you talked about knowing Rob and Rich and being a part of the isokinetic community over there. So what is that like for you?
So the isokinetic fits for me as the physio of these athletes. I have to say, only in having access to the testing results. So when I see them on the competitions and in the training camps. I don't see them normally through the year. Just one of the badminton players, she comes to me just to train with me and just to make her better in the shoulder. And we did 2 years preparation for the Olympics last year to make her faster and the shoulder more stable. But normally the isokinetic thing, I call it thing, for these athletes is the testing procedure. And the testing procedure for them has to be done in so-called Swiss Olympic medical centers. So I'm not involved in that because the medical situation is made by them. What I'm interested in, because all of my athletes knew that I can deal with the isokinetic stuff, I'm asking for the results before I have them in the competition. Or when they show up with problems, sometimes they give me a message and say, hey, Heiko, yesterday I did the testing and my results were these and these. And they told me to do that. Do you agree? Do you not agree? And this is, but it's more a little bit, I'm in the background because I'm not the officially performance tester from them. Yeah. But I have access for the results for sure.
Are you looking at like antagonist-agonist ratios, like ER versus IR?
Yeah, definitely.
Other than just bilateral, are you ever looking at like, so like one of the big things with the shoulder is the functional ratio. So like the concentric concentric IR compared to the eccentric ER, trying to get like a 1-to-1 balance. I don't know how much that actually carries over, just from baseball to what you're doing.
Oh, it's super important. And this is a topic which I try to explain these people who are doing the testings, because sometimes I receive the results and I see clearly, hey, we have an issue. Or sometimes I look at the results and I see fuck did you test it? You know, that's absolutely not important for these sport, for these athletes. I mean, if you talk to Francesca, she will explain you something about these where they were testing para skiers, and instead of testing them the rotators on maximum strength, and you know how they ski, you know, I mean, the adductors, they have to push really, really hard. They did a VO2 maximum performance testing. I mean, hello, the race is going 40 seconds, you know? And what are you doing? You're doing an endurance testing for the lungs, and that's ridiculous. And then she asked for them and said, hey, I would prefer to do a maximum strength test because no, the shoulder strength is not that important. No, that's wrong. So, and what I learned with my athletes and also with the patients, I mean, it's patients and athletes, for me, it's more or less the same. It's just a level of performing. And before you start with your whole experience of physiotherapy, just look at it. Just ask them what they need. For example, my paracyclists, they don't need eccentrics. They don't need concentrics. They need bilateral concentrics in a very short, we speak just about the shoulder, in a very short range of motion. So they don't lift the shoulder. They never have the shoulder or the elbow more than 70 degrees. It's just this, you know. But they need to push and to pull. And in this area, the scapula, now we are again back to the scapula has to be set in the wheelchair. Otherwise, the force on the arms can't perform. A completely different to my Paralympic badminton players. If you watch them and if they hit it's not a ball. How do they call it?
They call it birdie.
Shuttlecock.
Okay. So how they hit that thing, you know, they are so quick. And for them, the problems, as we know, the problems result because of weak eccentric external rotators, because they have to do a very quick decelerating.
Right.
So the acceleration, they train acceleration all the time, but they have to train, they forgot to train the deceleration of the external rotators. And what do? When you see them, they're sitting and they're doing, show me this, they're doing like this, you know? And because the physio said, I have to train my external rotators. And then I'm showing up and ask them, so, okay, that means you're playing your game all the time in this position? No, my arm is here and here. So why don't you train there? And this is what I do. I'm looking for the external rotators, eccentrics in this position and in this position. And I want to see the performance of the shoulder after 20 minutes, concentric, because they're tired. And then they have to have the ability to stabilize it, not when they're fresh, not when they're focused. So if you do this in testings, then you have an idea of what you have to do.
So Heiko, from one nerdy clinician to the other, you know, Daniel mentioned that 1-to-1 IR-ER ratio we're all after for the baseball players, you know.
Yeah.
The main function of the external rotators, like you said, slowing the arm, stopping the arm eccentrically. So some of your favorite exercises for that. I love to get a dumbbell and sitting and then have them go slow, real heavy dumbbell, slow down, help it back up. I love the isokinetic machine, eccentrically. You could even have them do it here as well. Any thoughts clinically on those?
So I do exactly the same to increase the strength, the pure strength in every position, with dumbbells, with isokinetic systems, with additional weight. And if in parallel, when they increase the strength, I also increase as fast as I can the speed, because they have to do it fast. If you have just a strong muscle, the shoulder is in my opinion, the shoulder is our fastest joint we have. A baseball thrower, if you would just watch the shoulder, it's much faster than the knee or the hip of a runner.
Mhm.
And it's not only it's deceleration, which has to go super, super fast. And what I love in this phase, in addition to the strength training, so what I like to do is the same what you did, man. I try to get a little bit of fatigue in the muscle with eccentrics and heavy loads, and then on top I use really strong rubber bands, and I let them hold it, and I tension the rubber band, but I keep the tension so that the arm is still not under pressure.
Mhm.
And then it's me who loosen the tension, so they have to stabilize immediately on a special position.
Very cool.
And in the next phase, they don't know when, so they have to watch in a different direction. And then I just let the rubber go, and I have to bam, hold it. And in the next phase, I do it while they do the movement, and suddenly in between, against a little bit of resistance, and suddenly in between, I apply these super heavy, super fast eccentric. And in the next step, I do dual tasking. I let them do calculation rows. I asking them question, what is the capital of Australia? Sydney? No. I ask, it works. It's super cool. And they have fun because they have to work here. And then suddenly they have to stabilize the shoulder or keep going on with it. I mean, that's the game. That's, in my case, that's badminton. The arm is doing completely automatics because the head is already with the ball and in the tactics, and they can't think about, oh yeah, the physio told me I have to keep my shoulder backwards. I have to put and this is my thing I do. And there's the isokinetic system super, because you can increase the speed slowly, and you can do a kind of, I call it windowing. Is this the right term? So you can look where is the speed where the patient or the athlete is able to create enough strength. And that's exactly the point where you have to train it.
I like it.
It's almost like you're looking for what is the specific tissue need.
Yeah.
And then you're finding the load that it needs to adapt.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same if I have a normal patient and he's a worker. He's a worker who is doing 80% overhead working with his hand. So then we have to train the overhead working, but not fast and not explosive, but for endurance. So and this is what I learned in the last 20 years, is focus on the ability and the needs of your patients. Don't focus on what you learned in some courses, in exercises, in education, what some super fancy people told you in a congress. Wow. It sounds a little bit tough, but it's true.
Heiko, I was going through your website, and I just had a confirmation bias moment where you said building tissue tolerance and resilience, pretty much with anyone that you come in contact with. We share something very similar with what we do here at our clinics. So that's good to see, even all the way over there in Switzerland.
Yeah, and I mean, there's this expression, target tissue training. That's exactly what we do. You know, I'm asking what kind of tissue creates the problem, and then I have to train these tissue. And train means, for me as a physio, I help you to do it on your own, and it's not me doing it better. It's you. And this is every patient in our clinic knows, hey, if we show up in this institute, Francesca will tell you more about this, but everybody who shows up in Agility Plus knows we have to work there. If you show up with your low back pain and you come on the entrance and you say something like, hey, you know, I want to have massage because it feels so good, you're wrong here. You can have massage one time, but after the massage, we go to the barbell and then we're doing some deadlifts.
Yes, Heiko, love it.
That's our mentality, because because that's our experience, and we knew it works.
Mhm.
We knew it works.
Well, yeah,
And
I found another quote on your website, and I'm a big lover of Star Wars and Yoda, and it reminded me like something of what Yoda would say. Your quote is, "Whoever moves sets stimuli. Those who set stimuli create change. If you change, you move on."
Yeah,
That says it all right there.
that's it. Move,
Mm-hmm.
and move a lot. And this is one big advantage of the isokinetic system. So what I told on my last workshop, it was in Croatia, I was asking the guys about the CPM mode, and they said, yeah, CPM, we have these mobility machines for knee exercise, for knee mobility and something like this. And then I just did a small mathematic calculation and said, okay, now think about, you have a knee and you have 60 degrees per second on CPM. And let's say we have 60 degrees range of motion, and we do this on CPM, that ends up in 30 repetitions per minute.
Yeah.
Right? That means in 5 minutes, we have 150 repetitions. In 10 minutes, we have 300. In 15 minutes, we have 450 repetition of that knee joint. Tell me any other system who can do this. And 450 repetitions in a knee joint. It doesn't matter what you have. If you have a meniscus lesion, if you have an ACL, if you want to get rid of a hematome or something like this, 450 repetition, that's unbelievable. Now think about, you increase the speed on CPM, which is not a problem at all to increase it on 120. You would have 900 repetitions. And then the people over there were like, bah. And he said, yeah, it's just move.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that CPM setting. We use it for people after surgery, and it's in the non-weight bearing position, so it's just super comfortable. They tolerate it really, really well. We use a lot for eccentric training as well too. Mm-hmm. So I love the pause feature on there too.
Especially with people post-surgery, which have pain, which feel unsure, which don't want to really get touched. But in the UMAC device, they feel safe and they feel relaxed, and you can just move them, but with an activity of concentric, of eccentric. I love it. It's a super mode.
Agreed.
Well, Heiko, thank you so much for coming on today. And I'm really looking forward to speaking with Francesca as well in the future.
You will. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Matt, did you have anything else for Heiko?
No, Heiko, you mentioned the word mountaineers several times, and I'm from West Virginia, and we have been nicknamed the West Virginia Mountaineers at our university. So I call myself a mountaineer, and you said you do a lot of mountaineering. It's just not a term we hear a lot in America. So glad to hear you say it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can imagine the mountains you're experiencing are a little bit more than the Appalachians.
Probably so.
Heiko, where can people find you if they have any questions or if they want to contact you?
They find me on Agility. So on the website from Agility Plus Sport Physiotherapy, or Sports Physiotherapy Martin in Basilea.
Awesome. All right. You heard it from Heiko. Go check him out and contact him as you want to, guys. But thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Looking for a way to improve sport-specific training with your athletes? Then you have to check out BlazePods. BlazePods is a neurocognitive reaction training intervention that can be incorporated into your sessions for patients throughout the treatment spectrum. Visit blazepod.com. Enter code EVERYTHINGPT at checkout and save 15% off your order today. Hey, all you rehab specialists out there. Do you have an isokinetic dynamometer just sitting around your clinic not being used? Little known fact, isokinetic machines that aren't used regularly are at higher risk for bouts of sadness. Help your machine out and take CSMI's newest CEU course, Isokinetics 101 online, created by me, Daniel Bodkin, and learn how to use all of the exercise and testing applications available on your machine. With new and exciting rehab techniques in your toolbox, your sad isokinetic machine can become an active member of the rehab team again and regain its happiness. Isokinetics 101 Online by CSMI has been approved for 8 credit hours for athletic trainers, physical therapists, and physical therapy assistants. Contact your state board for details on specific requirements. This course is available at humacnorm.com/courses/isokinetics-101.